All right, the union upheaval that we're now seeing in Wisconsin is now spreading across the Midwest to Ohio. Thousands of protesters marched outside Ohio State House to rally against the bill that would do away with unions' collective bargaining rights. But like Scott Walker in Wisconsin, GOP Governor John Kasich insists that he will not back down. Now, Democrats are handling these events with the same civility that they have brought to other battles. Earlier today, here's what Massachusetts Congressman Mike Capuano told a group of union workers.
I'm proud to be here with people who understand that it's more than just sending an email that gets you going. Every once in a while, you got to get out of the streets and get a little bloody when necessary.
A little bloody when necessary on the streets. Now, the congressman did apologize for his choice words, but they're certainly ironic given that last month that he was decrying the incivility of today's political rhetoric in the wake of the Tucson massacre. And joining me now with analysis, the author of the New York Times #1 bestseller, Culture of Corruption, also our website, MichelleMalkin.com. Michelle Malkin's back. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back, Sean.
All right, well, let's first of all, your reaction to that comment. You know, I mean, when a congressman of the United States who was lecturing us, just like the president, on incivility and the rhetoric in the country and blaming people who are innocent for the actions of a madman, for him to go out and, well, every once in a while you need to go out in the streets and get a little bloody, that sounds like he's inciting violence, doesn't it?
It sure does. And get a little bloody is the union way. This has been Big Labor's motto for decades now. And I think it's very interesting that we have the likes of Richard Trumka, the thug-in-chief at the AFL-CIO, who's been leading and instigating so many of these protests across the country. He certainly shares that motto, get a little bloody now. And I urge every one of your viewers, Sean, to get informed about this man's bloody legacy and his rise to power, because about 18 years ago, he was the one in charge of the strikes at the coal mines on the East Coast in Virginia. And the death of Eddie York should be a story that every Tea Party activist knows about. He was shot to death as Richard Trumka was leading those coal strikes. And these are quotes from Richard Trumka, which I reported a couple of months ago. I'm saying if you strike a match and you put your finger in it, you're likely to get burned. Talk about incendiary. And he said this later in Illinois when he was also leading national strikes. He urged his own members to, quote, kick the blank out of every last worker who defied his union. These are the people we are dealing with. They play hardball, and people need to know about it.
Let me take it a step further, because as we know, the White House, Obama's group Organizing for America, and the DNC have been fomenting this, and they've been supporting what's been going on in Wisconsin and elsewhere. You mentioned Richard Trumka. You talked about his history. Well, Richard Trumka is a frequent guest. Guess where? At the Obama White House. Listen to him in his own words.
How often does the White House, do you get to have conversations with the White House? Conversations or via the White House? Oh. Yeah, or how about via the White House? I mean,
I'm at the White House a couple of times. Okay. 2-3 times. And I have conversations every day with someone in the White House or in the administration. Every day.
I'm at the White House once or twice a week. I have conversations with somebody at the White House every day. Sounds like a coordinated effort.
It certainly does. And, of course, the White House has been trying to disavow these what's happening and try and make it as if it's some sort of grassroots thing. These are the kings of AstroTurf, and they've been coordinating since day one, and of course well before that, to help get Barack Obama elected. And before Richard Trumka, of course, it was Andy Stern, another thuggish big labor head. And Barack Obama can no more disassociate himself from this kind of trash than he can disassociate himself from his own shadow.
Look, it's fairly obvious what's going on here, and it's this unholy alliance between unions and the Democratic Party. Unions give hundreds of millions of dollars, help elect Democrats. They get sweetheart deals that have to be paid for down the road, and that's what we see happening in a lot of states. All right, I want you to examine, I'm going to put up on the screen some of the protesters' signs. They've been comparing Scott Walker to Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, and he's got, you know, lock and reload, and basically, you know, you could see a lot of it there. We've talked about this. When you can see a Nazi sign in that particular picture with an Adolf Hitler mustache on Scott Walker. My question is the Tea Party movement was accused of these things, but there was no evidence that they could bring to the table. Now here's all this evidence, and the media is virtually silent on this. Your reaction?
Yeah. Well, it was a tactic that was born of the entire Alinsky strategy of demonizing and marginalizing the left's opponents. It's what they always do. And what they've always engaged in is this massive, chronic psychological projection, accusing their opponents of what they fundamentally do to fight for their power grabs and for their power agenda. That's really what it's all about. And it's interesting to hear some of these big labor thugs defend what they're doing in Wisconsin, demonizing Governor Walker, trying to prank him, trying to embarrass him, trying to distract him from being an adult. And that's what the voters of Wisconsin wanted, adults. This big temper tantrum just shows you that there are no adults in Washington. There are no adults in the Democrat Party. These people are still in their Huggies pull-ups, crying all the way.
You know, it is interesting that the champions that are adults, that are challenging the big spending, the big deficits, record deficits, and trying to get their budgets in balance, you know, everyone from Bobby Jindal to Haley Barbour to Chris Christie to Bob McDonnell, Nikki Haley, they're all, you know, are the new freshman class of senators like Rand Paul. And it's amazing that they're being praised for being brave and supported. But I'll give you 10 seconds last word. We're out of time.
Yeah, well, my column today talks about this flea bagger mentality of all of these cut-and-run Democrats. But this is how they roll. They cut and run when it comes to war abroad. They cut and run domestically when they're in trouble. And this is what has been such a golden opportunity for grassroots and fiscal conservatives to lead the country back in the right direction and show the maturity that the Democrat Party completely has abandoned.
Michelle Malkin, good to see you again. Thanks for being with us.
You too.
And coming up, another African nation is on the brink of a civil war. So why did it take our president almost a week to publicly respond to the crisis in Libya? Plus, Americans brutally murdered by pirates off the coast of Somalia. I'll tell you what our country needs to do to respond forcefully and make this go away. Coming up.